Walk through any neighborhood in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, or Montreal, and something feels off. The driveways are stacked with SUVs that cost more than a year of rent. Patios are packed on Wednesday nights. Instagram is flooded with Cabo trips, Lululemon hauls, and home renovations that look like magazine spreads. And then you look at the actual numbers behind Canadian households, and the math just does not add up. So, how are people doing it? How are regular Canadians, earning regular Canadian salaries, somehow living like they pulled off a six-figure side hustle nobody told you about? Let me show you what is really happening. According to Statistics Canada's most recent release in June 2026, the household debt-to-income ratio climbed to 179.6%, the sixth straight quarterly increase. That means for every dollar a Canadian household earns after taxes, they owe roughly $1.80 in credit. That is one of the highest ratios in the developed world. Credit card balances across the country recently crossed $124 billion, an all-time record. And the average Canadian credit card balance now sits above $4,700 per cardholder, with more than 80% of adults in this country carrying at least one card. The interest rates on most of those cards float between 19 and 24%, which means anyone making minimum payments is essentially renting their own lifestyle from the bank, month after month, with almost nothing going toward the actual balance. Home equity lines of credit, known as HELOCs, are sitting around $179 billion in outstanding balances, and a chunk of that money is not being used to renovate kitchens or invest. It is being used to cover groceries, vacations, and monthly bills. In the first quarter of 2026, more than 37,000 Canadians filed for insolvency, up nearly 19% from the year before. That is the highest level since the global financial crisis in 2009. And the latest H&R Block Canada survey, published in April 2026, found that nearly 6 in 10 working Canadians say they struggle to make ends meet every single month, even when they feel they earn a decent salary. So when you scroll through your feed and feel like everyone else figured it out except you, take a breath. They did not figure it out. A huge portion of them are drowning in silence, smiling for the camera, and praying the next paycheck clears before the pre-authorized payments hit. This is what people are calling the fake rich illusion, and it is reshaping how an entire generation of Canadians think about money. Here's how the illusion actually works. It starts with a simple psychological trick. Humans compare themselves to the people right next to them. Your coworker, your cousin, the neighbor 2 doors down. You see what they drive, where they vacation, and what they post, and your brain updates its definition of normal. The problem is, you are only seeing the highlight reel. You never see the line of credit balance. You never see the auto loan stretched to 84 months. You never see the BNPL payment plan on the new couch. So you start chasing a version of life that nobody around you can actually afford either, and the entire neighborhood is running on the same fumes. Then the financial system shows up to make it easier. Banks raise credit limits without people even asking. Buy now, pay later apps turned a $200 pair of shoes into 4 payments of $50 that feel painless at checkout. Auto dealers stretched car loans to 7, 8, even 9 years to keep the monthly payment looking small. And HELOCs let homeowners tap into their property like a debit card because rising home values made everyone feel rich, even though that wealth was locked inside the walls of a house they still owed money on. Every one of these tools was sold as convenience. In reality, they were carefully designed to shrink the pain of spending, because pain is the only thing that normally stops you from buying something you cannot afford. And it worked. Across North America, monthly BNPL spending per user jumped by more than 20% through 2025, and the pattern in Canada is following the same path. Now layer on top of this the cost of actually living in Canada. Rent in major cities has climbed to levels that swallow half a paycheck before anything else gets paid. Grocery bills have jumped roughly 20 to 25% over the last few years, depending on where you live. Auto insurance, internet, phone plans, streaming subscriptions, gym memberships, and daycare costs all crept up while wages crawled. The Bank of Canada held its overnight rate at 2.25% in June 2026, but the damage from the high rate years is still sitting on people's balance sheets. Variable rate mortgages renewed at painful numbers. Lines of credit got more expensive overnight. And the average Canadian household now spends a brutal share of every dollar earned just to service the debt they already have, with the debt service ratio sitting near 14.75% of disposable income. So what do people do when their income cannot stretch any further? They borrow to fill the gap. Then they borrow again to look fine while they do it. Because nobody wants to be the friend who says no to the trip. Nobody wants to drive the older car to the family dinner. Nobody wants to admit that the renovation, the wedding, the watch, the bag, or the second vehicle was funded by a line of credit with a variable rate climbing past 7%. Here is the part that hurts to hear. Looking rich and being rich are two completely different financial strategies, and they tend to cancel each other out. Every dollar that goes into looking the part is a dollar that cannot compound for you. A $600 a month car payment, invested instead from age 30 to age 60 at a 7% average return, becomes roughly $730,000. That is the actual price of looking successful in your 30s. And most people never run that math because the math feels like an attack on their lifestyle, when really it is just the truth in a calculator. The good news is that the fake rich illusion only has power as long as you believe everyone else is winning. Once you understand that most of what you are seeing is financed, leased, or borrowed, the pressure starts to loosen. You stop comparing your real life to someone else's credit limit. You start running your own race, and that is where actual wealth begins to build, because real wealth in Canada is shockingly available to people who simply opt out of the performance. Here is what that looks like in practice. You audit your fixed costs first: housing, transportation, and debt payments. Those three categories destroy most Canadian budgets, and most people never touch them because they feel permanent. They are not. A cheaper vehicle, a roommate, a refinanced loan, a different neighborhood, a smaller mortgage at renewal. These moves can free up hundreds or even thousands of dollars a month. Next, you automate the gap. Whatever you free up gets pulled into a TFSA or an RRSP the same day your paycheck hits, before your brain has a chance to spend it. Then you let index funds and time do the heavy lifting. A simple low-cost Canadian index ETF held inside a TFSA has historically returned somewhere between 6 and 8% per year over long stretches. If you can find $500 a month by trimming the fixed costs we just talked about, and you stay consistent for 25 years, you're looking at a tax-free portfolio in the range of $350,000 to $450,000. And the last piece, the one most people skip, is letting go of the audience. Most overspending in Canada is not about the buyer. It is about the people the buyer is trying to impress, most of whom are not even paying attention. The neighbors are too busy worrying about their own bills. Your coworkers are too busy refreshing their banking app. The strangers on Instagram forgot about you the second they scrolled. When you finally accept that, money stops being a costume and starts being a tool. And the moment money becomes a tool, freedom is just a matter of time. So the next time you see a glossy lifestyle online and feel that little knot in your stomach, remember the real numbers. 179.6% debt to income, 124 billion in credit card balances, 37,000 insolvencies in a single quarter, the highest since 2009. Nearly 6 in 10 working Canadians struggling to make ends meet every month. If this hit home for you, do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one. I will see you there.